Hey, what's up everybody? So in this video I'm going to be going over some solutions for some exercises from Colt Steele's The Web Developer Bootcamp. Some students have expressed to me that they would like some explanations for some of the solutions, and this particular exercise set does not come with a solution video. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll move through each one of these exercises one by one. So I'm going to be working inside of the developer console. And the first question here, I'll just pull the question, is get age and convert it to a number. So we want to get the age from the user and convert it to a number. And there's a little hint here, number has a capital N. And then there's another hint, it says prompt always returns a string. String is capitalized because we're talking about the string object or the string data type. Okay, so the first thing he does is he uses the var keyword and creates a variable called age and sets it equal to, and then you can use prompt to get some input from a user. So we'll say, what is your age? Now if you remember up top here it says prompt always returns a string, but we want to convert it to a number. So we can get age as a string and then convert it to a number, or we can do it all at once. So we'll do it both ways. First we'll run this. Here we have our prompt. We can put our age in here. I'll say 27. And now if we take a look at age, we can see that we have a string 27. Now if we want to convert that to a number, there's a ton of ways to convert a string to a number. This article right here on Coder Wall is about converting strings to a number in JavaScript. And then it says pitfalls, and it explains the pitfalls of each method, which one's the best. We'll use the number constructor method because that's the one that Colt uses in the course, but there's a bunch of other ways to do it, so you can check out this article and read the do's and don'ts of converting a string into a number. Okay, so getting back to it, we're going to use the number constructor, and so we can say age is equal to number constructor, and then inside of the parentheses we can pass in age. And so we'll hit enter, and now you can see it returns 27 as a number, no quotations around it. Okay, so we can actually chain these together, these two steps, into one step. So we'll say var age is equal to number, and then we'll pass in prompt, what is your age? And then we just make sure that we close the parentheses for both the prompt and the number constructor. So it asks us what our age is. We say 27. And now if we take a look at the variable age, we can see that it's already converted to a number. Now bear in mind, this is a very simple solution. It doesn't include use cases or edge cases where somebody could enter in something that's not a number. So if we did something like var age is equal to number prompt, and I gotta spell prompt right, what is your age? Now if someone enters in, can't spell today, 27, and then they click OK, now if you look at age, what do you think it's going to be? Well, if we're trying to coerce a string into a number, but the string doesn't have a number inside of it that can be converted, then we get something called NaN, which stands for not a number. So if you wanted a much longer solution, Colt has this basic one here, which doesn't assume that someone's going to enter in anything other than a number into the prompt. Then you could further that solution with maybe like a while loop that keeps asking them over and over again. Like while, let's say, I think you can do is nan age. So is nan is not a number, age, and then you could say, so basically you'd put the first one and then you'd have this while loop that reassigns age while it's not a number, and assuming that's going to work, it says what is your age, we'll say 27, it says what is your age. We keep entering in stuff that doesn't make sense, and then finally we put in 27 and it returns 27. So anyway, that's kind of going above and beyond, but the point is we're using a variable to assign a string that we get back from prompt, and we're immediately converting it to a number using the number constructor. Okay, so moving on to the next exercise. If age is negative, then we need to tell the person some type of message. Okay, so we'll go ahead and clear this out. So we're going to use an if statement, that's obvious, and then we're asking for an age. So we already have the age converted to a number, and now we just need to determine what to do if the age is negative. So we already have the age variable, and now we need to check if it's negative. Well, anything less than 0 is going to be negative. We know that. So all we have to use is the less than operator, 0, the number, and now if age is -1, -2, all the way to negative infinity, I guess you could say, then we're going to console log, and we'll say the message they're putting in here is come back once you're out of the womb, wob. And you'll notice I use a backslash because I like to use single quotes throughout, and so if you're using an apostrophe here, which is also a single quote, then you need to escape it with a backslash. Colt doesn't do that, he uses double quotes. Okay, so we should already have a value for age. Even though it's not showing it here, it's still stored in the console's memory, and age was not less than 0, therefore we did not get that message back. Okay? So let's go ahead and see what happens when we give a negative value for age. So I will say age is equal to -1, and then we'll go ahead and copy this and run it again. And now you can see that it logged out to the console, come back once you're out of the womb. Okay, so that one's pretty simple. It's just checking to see if the number value is less than 0. So what do we do if the age is 21? We're going to congratulate the person, happy 21st birthday. So we can say another if statement, and then inside that if statement we'll have a console log, if I can spell correctly, and then we're going to say happy 21st birthday, little exclamation point. Okay, so inside the if statement we need to see if age is 21. So anytime you see is in like an equation, you know that means equal to. So we need to use the comparison operator for is it equal to, and there's 2 of these, so you can do it with double equals or triple equals. So we'll say age double equals 21, and so what this would do is if age was a string or any other data type, it would try to coerce it, in other words it would try to convert it to a number data type before comparing it to the data type that's on the right hand side of the operator, which in this case is a number. However, our age is already supposed to be a number from the first step where we converted it to a number. Therefore we should use 3 equal signs, which is the strict equality, which will not only check to see if 2 values are equal to one another, it'll also check to see if they're of the same data type. So we're expecting age to already be a number, therefore we're going to use triple equals. And honestly, when you're developing with JavaScript, you should almost always use triple equals. It just means that you're being more explicit about what you want. If you're using double equals, then you're kind of leaving it up to the program to help you determine what one data type may or may not be, and that can leave you room for potential errors. So we're saying if age is equal to 21, then console log happy 21st birthday. Well, we know right now the age is -1, so right above this I'm going to go ahead and just set age equal to 21. And remember, the difference between 1 equal sign and 3 equal signs is this is the assignment operator and this is a comparison operator. So we're assigning a value to a variable. Here we're comparing two values on either side of the operator. So we'll go ahead and run this, and since age is equal to 21, when we check to see if age is equal to 21, we get back this console log, happy 21st birthday. So if the age is odd, then we're going to just tell the person, hey, your age is odd. We can leave age as 21 because 21 is an odd number. This little hint here in parentheses is kind of hard to read right here, but he says it's not evenly divisible by 2. So that's supposed to give you a hint about modulus, or what's called modulo in JavaScript. If you don't know about modulo, basically what this operator does is it divides two numbers one by the other, and then it returns the remainder to you. So if we divide a number by 2, then if the remainder is equal to 0, that means there is no remainder, in which case the number that was divided by 2 must be an even number. So the opposite of that, if the number modulus or modulo by 2 does not equal to 0, then we can confirm that it is an odd number. So we'll say if age, and then we just use the percent sign. This is the operator, modulo, and then 2. If that does not equal, so this is essentially triple equals, but we replace the first equal sign with a does not equal, or what's called a bang, which means not, and then 0. Then we know that the value is odd, and we can just tell the person your age is odd, as if they didn't already know. Okay, so we know the age is 21 from up here, so this should tell us that our age is odd. Okay, your age is odd. And you can see it in action. 21 modulus 2 is 1, okay? Because 20 divided by 2 is 10. 21 divided by 2 is 10 with 1 left over, right? So that 1 is here, but that 1 is not equal to 0, meaning there is a remainder, and therefore it is odd as opposed to even. Okay, so moving on to the next one. And this is the pretty tough one, I think, that people are struggling with a little bit. If age is a perfect square. So a perfect square is the product of two equal integers. If you have 2 times 2, 2 is equal to 2, and they can be multiplied together, then you get 4. So therefore 4 is a perfect square. And then 3 times 3 is 9. So 3 is equal to 3. The product of that is 9. 9 is perfect square. You get it. So we kind of have to reverse engineer this to figure out how we can figure out if a number is a perfect square. And I don't think Colt has introduced the math library, so we'll take a look at that and see how that works out in this whole equation. So we're saying if a value is a perfect square, then we're going to console.log your age is a perfect square. Can't spell today. Okay, so if age is a perfect square. So I'm just putting this in here kind of as a placeholder to pseudocode, so to speak, until we can figure out what to put inside of here for the conditional statement. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and copy this and we'll just mess around. So I'm going to introduce the math.square root function. So math is a I guess you could call it a constructor, but it's a library in JavaScript. So we'll look it up. So here on the Mozilla Developer Network, we have Math is a built-in object that has properties and methods for mathematical constants and functions, not a function object. Okay, so unlike other global objects, math is not a constructor. Okay, so I was wrong, it's not considered a constructor. All properties and methods of math are static. So basically, if you're going to do any mathematical operations that are not like 1 + 1, 2 × 2, 3 divided by 3, etc., you want to do stuff that you would find on a calculator, then you're going to go in here into the math library and check out all this stuff. So they have log and epsilon and square root and absolute value and all these different trigonometry functions, sine, cosine, tangent, etc. But what we're concerned with is square root. So here it is, math.square root. So if we look at it, it says math.square root function returns the square root of a number that is, and it's got some math stuff here that looks like gibberish to me, but the important thing is that it just returns the square root of a number. So what we're going to do is go back over here and we'll use it, math.sqrt, and then we'll pass in a number. So let's pass in 9, and you can see the square root of 9 is 3. What happens when we use 8? We get a value that is a floating point number. In other words, it has numbers after the decimal. What we want from the result is a whole number. The formula that Colt uses to determine whether or not a number is a perfect square is he takes the number and then he gets the modulus. Remember, we just covered modulus in the last exercise, of the square root of that number, and if it's equal to 0, meaning there's no remainder, then that means that that number divided into its square root didn't have a remainder. Okay, and that is one way of determining that a number is a perfect square. So let's take a look at that. A perfect square is the product of two numbers that are equal to one another. So a product is just what the result of two numbers multiplied by one another. So we'll say 3 × 3 is 9. Okay, 4 × 4 is 16. So 16 is the perfect square, 9 is the perfect square. These values are equal to one another. So if we take 9 and we divide it by the square root of 9, then we can see what we get. We get 3. Okay, so 3 is that number that multiplied by itself would give us the perfect square. But notice this is a whole number. It's not a floating point number. There's not going to be any remainder. Okay, so if you did 8 divided by math.square root, and the reason I'm using 8 is because we know that 8 is not a perfect square, then the result is a floating point number. Now what we want to do is use what we know about this to create an if statement. So I'm going to paste this back in. We're going to go inside the if statement and we're going to say age modulus math.square root of age is equal to 0. And because 21 is not, if we take a look at age, remember age is 21, it's not a perfect square, therefore we don't get your age as a perfect square. So we'll go ahead and copy that. We'll set age equal to 9. We know that 9 is a perfect square. We'll paste this in and it says your age is a perfect square. So let's explore a couple other ways to go about this that wouldn't use the modulus. So we wouldn't use modulus to determine if the number is 0. When we had math.square root of 8, we got back a floating point number. And then when we had math.square root of 9, we got back a whole number. So if we get back a whole number, then we know that the value that we passed into the math.square root is a perfect square. So let's see what happens if we do like var num is equal to math.square root. We pass in 8. Now we have num, and we need to see if num has a dot inside of it. So I'm not sure if we can use the method that I'm thinking of, but let's see, num dot includes a dot. So doesn't like that. Maybe it's contains. Doesn't like that either. Probably because it's a number, not a string. So num plus an empty string turns num into a string. So we'll say num is equal to num plus an empty string. Now if we say num dot includes, and it says true, it does include a decimal point or a period, then we know that it is not a perfect square. So let's start from the top. So we'll say math dot square root of 8, and then plus an empty string, converts it to a string, and then wrap the whole thing and do a dot includes on it and check if it has a period in there. So we're saying get the square root, convert it to a string, and then see if it has the period inside of it. And so if that's true, then we know that it's not a perfect square. So we can do a bang at the front of it that says if it's not true, or if you wanted to, we could say equal 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 to false. So if it's not true, then we can say console.log your age is a perfect square. Okay, so I can't remember what age is right now, so we'll go ahead and reset it. So we'll say age is equal to 8, or we'll go ahead and do 9 since it's a perfect square. We'll plug in age right here, and we got an unexpected token in here somewhere. So let's go back and look at it. We have open, closes right here. So I need one more parenthesis right here. So open the if statement, close the if statement, open up this right here, and then we call the dot includes on it, and then we see if it's equal to false. So your age is a perfect square. Age is equal to 8 this time, and we'll plug this in again, and we don't get anything back. So that way works. It's a little more verbose. Let's see if we can tighten it up a little bit. So we'll say if string constructor math dot square root of age dot includes, and then let's see here, we need to wrap this right here and put a bang in front of it. So that's still, it's about the same size as what Colt has in his. And then we'll put this console log in here. And so if age is 8, we're not going to get anything. So let's go ahead and change age to 9, and your age is a perfect square. So there's a bunch of ways that you can fool around with this to figure out if age is a perfect square or not. The math.square root, not necessarily something, I think the purpose of the exercise was Colt assumed that students would go out and find out about math.square root or the math library in general just by doing some Google searching. You know, how do you find out a perfect square of a number in JavaScript? And maybe on Stack Overflow or somewhere somebody would say, oh, just use math.square root, etc. Otherwise, you might have to go Googling a little bit or bust open your high school math book and kind of figure out that formula for yourself, and then determine, oh, I need to figure out how to do the square root. So I'm looking at Colts now, and I think it could be shortened down just a little bit, so I'm going to fool with it one last time before I let you guys go. Age modulus math.square root is equal to 0. If it's equal to 0, well, first of all, 0 is false. It's a falsy value, rather. So if you do opposite of 0, you get true. If you do the opposite of 0, you get false, right? So if this is false, then we're not going to see what's in here. So we need the opposite of whatever this is to be true, right? So if it's false, the opposite of it is true. So we can put a bang around wrapping this whole thing right here. And now you can see your age is a perfect square. So that's one way to shorten it up. You could keep optimizing it further and further. So that's basically it for the conditional exercises. If you have any questions, let me know. But that's a basic walkthrough of each of those exercises. Okay, thanks, and we'll see you in the next video.